Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. At the tender age of 10, Facebook has, by any estimation, truly changed the world. It has made it a little smaller and closer. Facebook also has demonstrated it can be used as a weapon for political change. And this social network has shown itself to be a smart investment. On the downside, there are transparency issues and whether it can survive another decade. To Crosstalk Facebook's anniversary, I'm joined by my guest, Clive Thompson in New York. He is a technology journalist for Wired and the New York Times Magazine, and author of Smarter Than You Think, How Technology is Changing Our Minds for the Better. Also in New York, we have Ed Krajewski. He is an associate editor at Reason 24/7. And in Washington, we cross to Austin Peterson. He is the CEO of Stonegate and editor of thelibertarianrepublic.com. All right, gentlemen, Crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want. Clive, you know, I think over the last few days celebrating and remembering the startup of Facebook, we all know a lot about its accomplishments, and there are many of them, and a couple of stumbles here. But go into your crystal ball for me. Can they repeat the same thing during the course of the next decade?
You know, I don't think they're ever going to be as big as they were maybe a year or two ago. They're almost like a utility for the internet. Now, everyone sort of has to use it to get certain things done, you know, party organizing, whatnot. But I don't think people find it an exciting thing to use anymore. It's not fresh and new. All the action is starting to move over to these chat services like Snapchat or WhatsApp or whatnot. That's where kids are going these days. So I think it sort of established itself as this kind of extremely useful tool, and it will hang around for those useful purposes, but I think the air will slowly leak out of the balloon over the next 10 years.
Austin, what do you think about that? Because I think it's also it's reliable, let's put it that way, but it's not nearly as exciting, and you know, I think I've more or less met all my old friends from the past. I mean, it's trickled off quite a bit, tapered off quite a bit.
Well, personally, I am a Facebook bull. I do see a positive future for Facebook, and the reason is because it's such a great tool for businesses. My small business actually runs mostly on Facebook, where 80% of our profits do come derived from Facebook traffic. And Princeton University actually did a study recently that compared Facebook to a disease, like a virus, and how it spreads and then it dies. But I actually disagreed with it because Facebook then turned around and slapped down Princeton, showing a study that showed that Princeton's numbers are declining according to their own formula. And they used it to show that the growth of Facebook will continue. And consider this, only 2 billion of the 5 billion people in the world are actually on the internet right now. So as the internet continues to grow and we have more people in the world who will be on the internet, I think Facebook will continue to grow as more people are getting connected.
That's a very good point. Ed, if I can go to you, I use Facebook very much like Austin does. I use it to promote myself and this program. And you know what? It is effective, okay? I do get because the sharing thing is what I like most, because I find my stuff in places I never could have imagined, and it was because someone shared it from Facebook. So I mean, from again, a utility from people like me, it is very, very useful, though at the same time I have to put up with a lot of people that I don't really call friend.
I think Austin hit the nail on the head there. I think as long as it's profitable for people to use, as long as there's ways that people can use it that works for them, it's going to continue to be popular. You know, Friendster still exists. MySpace still exists, and these things don't have nearly the user base that Facebook does, but even MySpace, it still helps certain artists sell their music, and so it still exists, and so Facebook will always exist. And so whether not always, maybe, but I think it will last longer than this Princeton study said. I think what the younger kids are using is just going to be so different from what Facebook is, and I think that's just a part of us getting old, you know. And I know guys like Austin and me, we don't like to think that we're getting old, but we're getting old, you know. Like, I don't even know what Snapchat is. I know what Snapchat was till I heard about it from Rand Paul. That's how out of it I am. So, but I think that's also important to know.
Okay.
That the younger
all right,
people
gentlemen,
are find something else.
This program is not known for much laughing. Okay, Clive, if I can go to you, I think, you know, Ed really brought up a point that I wanted to bring up anyway on this program, is demographics, and there's something very much interesting about that, because when I first got on, I just thought it was for these kids, you know, and I resisted getting on in the beginning because I thought, well, this is for teenagers, right? And now I realize it's for baby boomers, because it's baby boomers telling about their life, and more so in that case. Now, if we take that premise, that, well, we baby boomers, well, we're getting on a little bit, okay? So, I mean, how do you fit that into the business model?
Well, the truth is, I mean, so I'm Gen X, I'm 45, and there's a ton of people in my cohort in there using Facebook. They find it useful for all sorts of things. Again, it could be promotional, like what you found it for. It could be just basically keeping in touch with a large amount of people. I mean, the one thing Facebook was really valuable for, and remains valuable for, is that it sort of trained the U.S. and really now the world in these habits of what psychologists call ambient awareness. Like, you know, paying attention to someone by noticing what's going on in the corner of your eye, these little drip of updates. It's actually quite a powerful way to understand what's going on in someone's life. You get a lot more detail than you would have got if you tried to talk to them on the phone, you know, once every 6 months. So I think that's valuable, and it's definitely valuable. One of the reasons why I think, you know, the olds, as they call it, people like me and you like it, is because we don't have as much time on our hands to go around making those phone calls, so we do this. Now, the thing is, our presence is part of what chases the young people away. They don't want to hang out with the olds around. They want other young people around. So that's why they move off. You know, they see us, they're like, oh, let's get out of here. You know?
Well, Austin, how do you react to that?
Can I jump in on that,
Yeah, go ahead.
Peter?
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that if you have to remember that, like, you have to look at what demographics matter to what industries. You're in the television industry, so for you, a different demographic is more valuable because that demographic tends to spend more money, or they would be more interested in watching your show. Snapchat is not going to be a good demographic necessarily for you because younger people aren't really interested in talking about the Sochi Olympics or talking about, you know, some topics like Syria, for example. Snapchat also is the type of thing where it gets destroyed immediately, and the reason why Facebook, I think, has longevity is because what you put on Facebook stays on Facebook. Last week they produced a billion videos for everybody who was on Facebook showing a look back at your timeline. And that's the kind of thing that creates an endearing relationship with its users. So it's a totally different type of platform. It's a totally different type of demographic. And if you're looking at what it's used for, people like yourself and myself who create higher end content for an older demographic, we see a benefit from it. But in Snapchat, they're having trouble monetizing it. Snapchat actually turned down a deal from Facebook. I think it was something like, what, $2 billion they were offered to buy Snapchat, and they turned it down, which I think was a big mistake because Snapchat is the kind of thing that seems more like a fad because you can't really share a lot of links. You can't share URLs that you can then monetize on the back end. It's just something that you can use for fun. But Facebook is the type of thing that exists, it has longevity, and it's the type of thing that can result in long-term monetization. So from a business standpoint, the demographics that Facebook incurs are the type of demographics that you and me can make money on.
Ed, what do you think about that? I mean, again, you know, we have these changing demographics here, and I mean, I agree. More people can get on the internet, but I mean, at the same time, Facebook is a known quantity, and it's not the exciting thing. It's a great utility. Don't get me wrong. It's a great utility. But for in most of the world, the demographics is very young. Do you think that they're still going to be attracted to it? And there are political issues we hear, gentlemen. There are countries that are very careful in dealing with Facebook, particularly in the Muslim world and China.
Well, I think a big question there is whether the kids, whether the kids use Facebook now or not, it's not relevant. Are they going to be using?
Go ahead, Ed. Go ahead. Finish up.
Are they going to be using it? Are the kids going to be using Facebook when they get older? You know, because Snapchat has what they want now, but when they get older and when they do become media consumers and they want the stuff that me or Austin or you are putting out, then are they going to move to Facebook? And I think that's a big question too. And I think the cultural stuff, you know, you can't kind of gloss over that either, because I think in Russia, correct me if I'm wrong, there's another kind of, they have their own social network, right? And it's huge in Russia.
It's called VKontakte.
And everyone's on it.
It's very, very popular. It's very popular. But I would say that Facebook is very, very,
yet, and it may.
But Facebook is very, very competitive in Russia. Clive, let me go to you. Has Facebook redefined what we mean by community?
Yeah, well, you know, in one sense, yes, because it has allowed us to stay in contact with what sociologists call weak links. Okay, so you think about your strong links. Your strong links are the people you know really well. They're your BFFs. You know, the 4 or 5 people that you know really well, a couple of family members you know really well. Those are the people that, like, those are your strong links. You talk to them a lot. You pay really close attention to them. Historically, there's also a thing called weak links, which are people you don't know very well. You know, maybe you met them at a cocktail party and you see them once a year. You know, they're weak. Now, here's the thing. Weak links turn out to be incredibly valuable in our everyday lives. When Marshall Granovetter, a sociologist, did a study about 20 years ago, he asked people, how did you get your job? And he found that the people who got the best jobs, the ones that paid the best, ones that they enjoyed the most, they came from weak links. They came from people they didn't know very well. And that's because, you know, if you ask your friends, your family members, you know, what jobs do you know? Your strong links, they know the same stuff you do. They're not bringing any new information into the mix. The new information, the cool stuff, comes from people that are far away from you. Now, it used to be that it was really, really hard to keep in contact with weak links because you weren't going to pick up the phone and call these people that you only met at a cocktail party a year ago. Nowadays, Facebook and tools like Facebook make it a lot easier to pay attention to what those weak links are doing. And so it's in the sense that it's changed community in the sense that it's greatly expanded the amount of these weak links that we're in contact with, that we're hearing from. And so it's expanded the amount of new, novel information that comes into our lives. And it makes it easier to solve problems, too. You know, everyone's got that experience where you're wondering about something, you have a question you ask, you throw it out on Facebook, you throw it out on Twitter, whatever, and like someone you barely know turns out to be the one who has an amazing answer to that question. So that's how it's changed community.
Austin, you know, right before we go to the break here, I think there's another category. I mean, weak links is really good, but there are other people I want to just keep an eye on. I want to see what they're doing, okay? And there are other people in journalism, for example. I want to see if they're going to say something about me or how they take a spin on something. It's a very interesting intelligence utility as well.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, as an outspoken advocate for limited government that I am, and also someone who does a lot of debunking of conspiracy theories in the United States, I have a big enemies list. And that is people who have used Facebook to seek out my personal information. They've published my personal information and out in public. And I've been able to
we'll go back to that point here.
people
Gents, we have to go to a short break. And after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on Facebook. Stay with RT. Welcome back to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. To remind you, we're discussing Facebook's 10th anniversary. Okay, Ed, I'd like to go to you. I'm going to pour some cold water on the 10th anniversary here of Facebook. I mean, if you have too many friends on Facebook, it ends up being a waste of time because you just can't keep up with it. You know, that notification I have on my phone, I have to turn it off because it's always going off, one after another, after another, after another, particularly when somebody tags me in something, which happens to me every single day, on issues that I have no idea what they're talking about. There's a downside here. You have to put a lot of time investment into it if you want to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I think Facebook's always working on that stuff too. I think you hit a good point with the spam, and spam used to be an even bigger problem with Facebook, and spam's kind of what killed MySpace in a way. So I think as Facebook tries to become more and more of a communication center, they're going to have to figure out how I can not be tagged in the promo for the Friday night party at the club that I've never been to, you know, because a friend of mine tagged me. But I think it's utility in what we were talking about before, and keeping weak links around for when you might need them, and even in ensuring that strong links don't become weak links just because you're moving out of that same circle that you might have used to have been in. You know, I consider myself still close friends with people I mean I've seen in a year or two even, but I know what they're doing because I follow them on Facebook, you know, and I talk to them on Facebook, and it has become, in a way, yeah, a way of kind of augmenting our social networks, our real life social networks. And so we're able to keep these people in our network, even though we may not be able to see them on a daily basis, or even be bothered to pick up the phone and talk, because who talks these days anymore anyway? I'm like amazed whenever one of my friends is like, why don't you call? What do you mean, why don't I call? Check out Facebook, you'll see exactly what I'm doing, you know? So, like, come on.
That's absolutely true.
Man, it's like 2014.
Okay, Clive, I mean, again, this tagging thing really irritates me because people want me to support a cause, okay? You know, every single cause you can imagine, they think that, you know, maybe I can help them out.
Yeah.
However, to be fair, remarkably enough, Facebook is turning into an unpaid producer of this program, because there are people that write to me and ask me to appear on this program. We don't have to look for them. They come to us now. Again, as a tool, I have really good things to say about it, except for I get those notifications just way too often. I'm going to turn it on after this program, and it'll just go one after another after another. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the sort of social overload is a thing a lot of people deal with. There's this curve of engagement, you know, like when people were new to Facebook, or when they start into almost any new service, whether it's Twitter, WhatsApp, whatever. At first, it's really exciting because it offers you this kind of new way of seeing the world, of seeing people around you, and so people get really excited, and they load on the friends, and they load on the contacts, and they get this very big feed going, and then after a little while, it starts to become kind of, oh my God, can I manage all this? And it feels like an onerous burden. And this is a funny thing, you know. I've read all these academic papers that have looked at, as Facebook has matured, you look at at people's attitudes towards it. Even as they say, yeah, you know, I get value out of this. This is useful for X, Y, and Z. You know, no question there. It's shifted to feeling like almost like tending a garden. It's like a duty or a
Yes.
or a task now, as opposed to something delightful. It kind of reminds me of the way, I mean, you think of email back in the 90s, it felt exciting and fresh, like, oh my God, I've got an email, this is kind of fun. That's great when you're getting like 10 emails a day. When you're getting like 300 a day, suddenly it becomes a bit of a slog. And so there's always this tension with Facebook where it's, you know, and tools like this, they're fun, they're useful, but they also can become kind of a bit of a slog if you don't watch out.
Austin, let's talk about the privacy issue and NSA and the sharing of users' information. And this is something that is a concern. We finally had Facebook and Google and others admit that they give information upon request. And in the case of Facebook, they gave 80% of all requests to the U.S. government in the United States, not other countries, but in the United States. How do you deal with that there? Because that's a chilling effect here. I think all of us in the back of our head know somebody could be watching, but we have evidence now that some are.
Well, right. So it all comes down to personal choice. I don't agree with the government coming in and creating these surveillance programs in the first place. But what people have to understand is that we are voluntarily choosing to create this information. And what Americans and indeed everybody around the world needs to understand is that if you choose to get on a social network and you choose to put content up there, you are putting yourself at risk. And so everyone needs to understand the risks that are inherent in this. And certainly I've actually been burned by this before personally, where information that I had put online was shared with people and used in a malicious manner. So that people do need to understand that there are security risks inherent with using these social networks. But again, it's not as if the government is coming in and saying you all need to be on this social network and you need to give us this information. People need to use common sense, and they have to understand that what they put out there could possibly be spread around. You should assume, even if your privacy settings are set to private and people outside of your friends list can't see it, you should assume that if anyone can see it, then they might copy it, download it, share it with their friends. So the security problem really isn't necessarily even the government so much as the person, the onus should be on the person who is creating that information. And you have to understand, if you choose to use those selectively, there is a security risk inherently involved.
Okay, Ed, do you think that Facebook, if the government requests information on your account, do you think that Facebook should tell you that the government has requested information? Because there are things that are on the face of on your page are not seen by everyone. Okay, you can hide things, you can put things in folders and things like that. I mean, not everything there is seen by everyone, but you can have more information there. I mean, don't you think it's incumbent upon the provider to say, hey, someone's making some inquiries here?
I think it would be great. I think that's what Facebook wants to do. I think they want to be able to tell us that. I think the government would not let them, and that's kind of what the fight right now is about. I think more importantly, though, if I have something on my Facebook account that's going to get me in trouble with the government, then I'm an idiot. Because once you put something on the internet, it's there. The internet is the internet. And like Austin said, you can set it to private. You can set it to whatever you want. There are people out there who fish private photo bucket accounts, things that are a lot more private than Facebook, and people will grab everything out of there, you know? So I don't understand whether it's us emailing something that we don't want the NSA to know about, or whether it's Chris Christie's aides texting about shutting down a bridge. It's ridiculous. It's the idea that any of this stuff is private. We have to fight for the privacy rights, but we have to understand if you're putting it on Facebook, you're putting it out there for the world, whether you understand that or not. And I think the younger people do understand that, and that's why they're on the Snapchat, because the Snapchat, like we said, is not permanent. It disappears as soon as you finish the chat, and I think the young people understand that because they understand privacy.
But the
a lot
baby
better
permanent
than we do
because
in a
you
way.
can take a screen capture of it.
Okay, that's true. But I was just saying, with
You
that's
can, exactly.
That's true. But the difference between the generations is that the baby boomers want everything saved forever. Okay, that's the difference here. Clive, how do you feel about that? What kind of relationship should Facebook have with the U.S. government? Because I think that, you know, I don't see Facebook being malicious here. I see them being weak, and I think that they should stand up more for their users, because I think all of us go in to Facebook for good reasons, most of us anyway, not to for malicious reasons, but just to be what it's all about, friends.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. There's two issues here. There's one about, I don't even know if I call it weak. I mean, when the government comes at you with a national security letter, you know, you pretty much have to comply, right?
Well, Twitter said no. Twitter said no.
Really?
Twitter said no, though, and keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, you're right. But the point is, the problem begins at the level of bad legislation that's created an environment where dragnet spying becomes the official policy of the government, the three-letter agencies. Bad laws created the situation. It's only better laws that are going to remove that pressure. That's going to effectively say, on a policy level, we don't think dragnet spying, i.e. collecting a massive haystack and then trying to find little needles in it, is the way to go. And the truth is, you know, all the stuff that's come out suggests that dragnet spying has not actually been that effective, that whenever they've actually, you know, busted a serious plot, a serious terrorist plot, has been through, you know, old-fashioned contacts and leaks, not through this big dragnet stuff. So it doesn't even look like it's very effective. So I think we definitely need better laws, and if you have better laws, then the environment for sharing online becomes less dangerous and less toxic. I quite agree that if there's something you really don't want the public to know, don't put it online. The one area where I would give Facebook some culpability here is that they have regularly and constantly change the terms of their service, the way they work over time, so that stuff that you used to think was only being shared with a small private circle of friends becomes much more and more public. If you look at the way they've changed their settings over time, they're constantly pushing open. So one of the things that you find when you talk to a lot of young people, as I do, is that they simply don't trust that stuff they put up now that is supposed to be for just X, Y, and Z close friends they'll wake up one day, oops, now everyone's seeing it, right? You know, so they want a service that has a simpler
and remember, Clive, don't forget, every photo that we see of Mark Zuckerberg shaking hands with Barack Obama ought to tell you something about his agenda.
Go ahead, Austin. Go ahead, jump in.
Well, I want to remind everyone that Facebook, being a private company, it doesn't mean that they necessarily have the public interest in good. I mean, there was a quote from Mark Zuckerberg that came out several years ago where he said that his users were, quote, effing idiots for giving them all their data. So, and remember, back in December, there was a major push by Facebook to restrict the amount of organic traffic that can go to certain pages. And Facebook, in effect, chose winners and losers by deciding which publications would be allowed to maintain a large amount of organic reach, which is how many people you can essentially have visit your page for free or see your post for free. Now, they restricted my page. They restricted the Libertarian Republic, but they didn't restrict some of my competitors' pages based on what they deemed as quality content. And some of the terms that they said for the reasons for why they did it were actually false. They said they were going to restrict the amount of posts that were going to be seen, and it turns out that they weren't. They said we're going to restrict the amount of memes that can be seen by people, which actually wasn't true, because memes still have the same amount of organic reach. So people need to read the terms of service. They need to understand that a private company does have their own agenda, and they need to use caution. I would say caveat emptor when it comes to the use of social networks.
All right, gentlemen, we're fastly running out of time. I'm going to ask my viewers a favor here. Please go to my Facebook page and look at the video that Facebook made for me during my time on Facebook and tell me if it reflects what you think you see on this program. Many thanks to my guests in New York and Washington, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.